Good morning. Uh, this will be I think, the final little session with discussion of my father and his relation to me and to the family. I noticed the lighting is not good this morning. I think that's probably because it's totally overcast, it's raining, and anyway, I think I want to start with finish up hobbies fairly quickly, and then we're going to tackle fishing. Uh, this was a hobby of my dad. Um, when I was little, he taught me how to fish, stream fish, and after the war, I was able to buy a real pole, meaning a bamboo pole, which was a big thing and a big expense at that point in time. Uh, my dad was not a very avid fisher. Uh, fishing to fishing to him was a way to get out, get to kind of escape. Somebody would take a walk or a hike or something, and to him fishing was the same release. The one thing that he did do, though, was somewhere along the line when I was young, he picked up a wooden boat, and it was a good sized boat. Um, and ultimately, we got a little engine on it, so it was sufficient to, uh, you know, go onto a stream or a lake. For us, fishing was particularly during the war and after the war, was at Lake DeSmet. Um, many of you have driven by it on the highway, and but during the war, with no one having gas, there was a little marina where you could go down and launch your boat and get a soda pop, as they said then. Um, and that was, essentially it. Um, so that's where we went from Story, because the distance is short from Story. So my dad acquired over the time enough fishing gear to do lake fishing or trolling. Now this was a different story. This he loved. But again, I think it was the means to escape. We trolled during the war uh, whenever it was possible. And as I mentioned, he had only Wednesday nights and Sundays to do that. But we did go as often as possible. And he did take as many of the uh, relatives as he could, or friends. Uh, he, there was nothing selfish about it. I mean, he didn't do it exclusively for his own recreation. He was very kind that way and enjoyed the company. It was the escape, I'm sure. Lake DeSmet at that time was literally not inhabited. And once you were launched and out on the water, even then, you still had to be alert because on numerous occasions you would come upon a rattlesnake that was swimming across the lake, as well as in the red shale around the lake. You had to be very careful. Now, uh, in high school, when I was in high school, and when my grandfather died, my dad at that time purchased the Jeep, and he purchased, well, I, I have to back up because I think there's one little incident that'll tell you something about my father. The old boat he called Jonah was an old wooden boat, and after the war, fiberglass had become, uh, I guess, a fad. Yeah, fad probably, but it was for real. And so he took that old wooden boat, and we had it in the garage upside down, and he laminated that with fiberglass. So it's coat of rosin, layer of fiberglass, coat of rosin, labor of fiberglass, you know, on infinitum. I don't know how many coats he put on there, at least 7, and probably closer to 9. So the result was we had ourselves a modern boat that was waterproof and heavy as hell, and you could barely move the damn thing. Well, after my grandfather died, and he got the Jeep, then he bought a new boat. He bought an aluminum boat, and he bought a bigger motor, and at that time Mercury, and the aluminum boat with the Mercury motor was supposed to be usable for water skiing. So he got some water skiing equipment. He didn't water ski. My mother didn't water ski. But, you know, all I did and all my friends would, and neighbors and whoever. He really thought that was fun, and he really liked to get out and entertain that way. But the thing, going back to the fishing, that I remember the most, and it's vivid in my mind, extremely vivid, he would go out on the lake. We would go, because he'd take me, and it would be just the two of us, and he'd put a couple of beers in the boat, nothing serious, and we would go out on that lake and fish in the evening. The sun would go down, and we'd be out there till 11 o'clock at night. And Lake DeSmet in the summer, close to the mountains, was as peaceful and quiet as you can imagine. The stars unlimited. There was no cities in any distance, and it was just pure relaxation. If by chance we caught a fish, we caught a fish, and we took care of it properly and all of that. But most of the time we didn't, and probably because we didn't really, as I say, not avid fishermen. We really didn't know how. Okay, I'm going to leave that and go to guns. We've talked a lot about guns. The only thing we haven't talked about is the reloading equipment that he had. He designed and reloaded shells always. After every weekend out on the range, we would clean the guns and clean everything, and then recast whatever bullets we might want for the next time out. And I mention that because we hadn't, again, you can see the quiet and but I was always there, and if I didn't go, he was fine. If I did, he was, I think, delighted that I did. So the only thing I haven't, in relationship to guns, talked about is the fireworks story. I think I don't know that I covered a 4th of July day story. I should do that in a short one. I will do that. But he built, made cannons for the 4th of July. Now, by a cannon, I'm talking about, oh, you can't see maybe all of it. The cannon itself was probably 8 inches to 9 inches long. It was run on the lathe. It looked like a cannon. It was bored out. We used black powder, packed it, and fired it. But he also built the carriage for it. So we had these cannons that were, really mechanically sound. And you'd fire one of those cannons, and the back push would send it back 10 feet, 12 feet. It was pretty amazing. And it worked great for the 4th of July. Those cannons disappeared when the cabin was sold. It's one of the few things that my dad did that I wish desperately that I had. So let's jump over to his photography. Almost all of you probably have seen examples of the kinds of pictures that he took. He had available early only black and white. He liked to get out and photograph. He was an excellent photographer. He might not have been quite in Ansel Adams' class, but he was good. Because he had an eye for it. And of course we have so many photos, boxes. Well, your Thelma would tell you. Yes. But those are available for everybody. And but when you look at them, then you see them through the eyes of the photographer, and you're looking at I think someone that had an artistic little knack and getting outdoors, getting into position, doing the light. All of this, again, was, I think in looking back, part of the escape mechanism. It was where he was at home. He was comfortable there. He was on his own turf. Same as with the guns and fishing. So, in a lot of ways, he was terribly creative. My mother said he was a genius, that he tested over 140 on his IQ, even in that day. And he, I think, pretty much we can determine was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Why he didn't move, why he didn't, take the talents that he had. I think I tried to explain in terms of the family relationships, the war, the depression. There were a lot of factors there. Today we would take off. That's what the children do. We raised them to take off. They do. So, with one final thing, I will close this session. I would like to enlighten you with my father's one and only time when we were driving that we had the coming of age sex talk. It was very brief. I suspect it was to the point, had some meaning. I'll leave it to you to understand, but and for your use with your own children. It is he got into it very embarrassed. He was kind of stuttering around and whatnot. The upshot was the entire talk, in a nutshell, is all cats are gray in the dark. So I wish you carpe diem, and they can go into deep analysis.